And welcome everyone to this, the 6th episode of The Second Opinion. I'm Arvind, your moderator for today.
I'm Srinjoy from Year 1 MBBS.
I'm Jashin from BMS Stage 2.
And I'm Anshu from the Foundation Program.
Okay, so with all of our speakers here today, our topic for this session is first impressions. A more or less light topic compared to what we usually take, but I think it's a good change. So, just before we start, I'd just like to gather all of your opinions. What do you think of when we say first impressions?
For me, a first impression is when you see or maybe meet someone or talk to someone for the first time. What do you think of them, or what conceptions you have of them? What do you think their lifestyle is like, or what kind of person they are?
I think a first impression is like even way before you talk to the person. Maybe like if you just like look at someone from a distance or like see someone, then that's where like the first impression of that person gets into you.
Okay, there's something interesting. We'll be talking about that as well later. Yeah.
So I think first impression is how one presents himself or herself. Mm-hmm. So actually that does, to a certain extent, shows you some of his or her character. And of course, the first impression holds some values to that person.
True. So, our first question, how far do you think first impressions influence our interactions and relationships with different people?
In most cases, we tend to have some conceptions about people from the beginning.
True.
So we try to, if we think they have a certain personality trait that we might not like, might avoid them, even though we don't know their actual personality or we don't know them that well. Because some people are maybe hard on the outside, soft on the inside, as I say.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I think.
I think like when you look at that person and if you think like he or she is approachable, then only you will like go to the person and like start a conversation and then get to know about the person. But like if in your first impression itself, that person looks like what Srinjoy said, hard on the outside, and like if you're like scared to even go and like start something with them, then yeah, that's where the first impression doesn't even like give you a chance to know the person more.
I will agree with the both of them because I think the first impression is the first barrier you need to overcome to communicate with that person, or you need to approach that person. So if you cannot overcome this barrier, like what you said, hard on the outside, but you don't know what's in the inside. So how can you know if you don't approach? So this barrier is something that we need to overcome. As long as the barrier is not too strong, so I think that the person is approachable and we can find out more about him or her. So the first impression is just the first line of barrier, that's all.
So you seem to describe the first impression, so like from what Jashin said, like a barrier. And like it's something to be overcome. So primarily, do you guys view first impressions as something positive or negative? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's situational.
Yeah, like it could be both. It depends on the person.
Why?
Can I change my statement?
Yes.
So I think it's bad because you always have, most of the time you'll have a misconception about the person. Like some people might even look good from the outside, but when you talk to them, they're not the nicest person ever. So there's a reverse situation here.
Very true.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I think it is good. Because like if like what Srinjoy wants to look at it, like the person looks good, but when you talk to them then it's not like what they appear to be, then maybe it's a little bad. But what if like the person does not look that like approachable or nice to talk to, but then like when you go and talk to them, then they actually like...
But then that's already going against first impressions, what? Because the first impression you formed wasn't true.
Yeah, so if
is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I feel like if the first impression is not true, then it's a good thing.
Okay. It's interesting.
So it can be good or bad. So it depends on how one sees it, I guess. So I think that first impressions are not always accurate, but to a certain extent it can be accurate somehow.
Do you have any examples?
No, not yet.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll just to give you some of my views as well. I mean, why not? For me, a first impression, right, because I'm a very sciencey person, like in terms of survival in nature and stuff, if you think about it, what a first impression is it's like a quick way for you to say if that person is safe or dangerous. That's all it is, actually.
Have you heard of the thing with like psychopaths? It's like you get chills around them because of predatory response, basically. If you see a predator or something scary around you, you get chills, right? So they're trying to do studies to show that around psychopaths you're supposed to get chills.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I did not know that. But the idea is, so if you extrapolate from that, what we nowadays call as first impression is basically a quick assessment of the person to see, should I approach them or not? That's all it is. And like as you guys mentioned, it can be false because people may not always present themselves as what they actually are. So looking from that angle, from what you've just said, I would say that it's actually not a good thing. Because the primary examples you brought on is like, they look bad, but they're actually nice. Or they look nice, but they're actually bad. So how is it a good thing? Something to think about. So while you ponder on that, we'll come back to it. Something to follow from what Aramshu said. You mentioned how sometimes you don't even need to talk to them. Sometimes you see them from afar already, you have a first impression. What about social media? Have you thought about that?
Yeah.
Do we form first impressions from social media?
But it's...
Yeah, maybe. Because like nowadays, like from social media, you can see like what are their interests, who are they friends with, those kind of things.
And then you can see what their life circulates around. You can see what their hobbies are, what they always do.
I don't know, usually, like, if you don't meet someone in real life, you don't add them on social media. At least that's my policy, right?
That's yours.
Most of the people are, even on Instagram and stuff, they have private pages.
Yeah, correct.
So they'll only add people that they know or they've met before. So if you don't meet a person, you won't be able to get a first impression of them. You won't be able to see what they're doing in their social media.
But there are people who don't have private accounts.
Yes, there are people who don't have private
There are
accounts.
people known as stalkers.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting. I think nowadays, like, you don't even need to meet a person to form that first impression. Like what Aramshu and like Chashan also said. Even looking at their social media, and again, it raises the question: people don't always put what's real on social media. It's always what they want people to see. So you are basically forming the impression they want you to form. Am I right?
Yeah.
But isn't that the way we always do?
What do you mean?
We only present the part of ourselves that we want people to see, the good part, I suppose, like most of us do.
So in that sense, you're saying that it's okay? No, it's fine.
Saying everyone's an actor, so it's fine.
Well, everyone has two faces,
Yeah, that's what.
the light side and the dark side. So it's just like what choice, the choice on which side that we want to show people and which side that we want to act more on.
True.
Yeah.
But like in that sense, is it okay? Look, being honest, if you think about it, especially me using the word honest, it's dishonest to represent yourself in a way that you are not. Am I right? So in that sense, talking about first impressions, talking about like how we present on social media and stuff, does it feel wrong?
I don't know. This comes down to a person's choice, to be honest.
Yeah, it comes down to
Yeah, so
I don't think what she meant was like being dishonest about yourself. It's
Yeah,
just about
I mean
like
that. So you have the choice to show
what
yourself.
you want people to know about
Yeah.
you and keep some things private.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has the right to do that.
True.
basically, we used to be saying like social media, if it's a person, it's like the outermost layer, right?
Yeah, that's true. But then, like, how in like today's society, especially with that, especially with like all the glitz and glamour, how do you sort of overcome that and get to know the real person?
Talk to them. Right?
Yeah.
You gotta go up to
Talk
them
to
and
them.
talk to them
Yeah, talk to them.
for at least a while. That's the only solution, right? How do you make a formed opinion? But even, I don't even think like talking to someone once considers, like it's not, you can't form your opinion after talking to someone once. Maybe they were in a bad mood that day.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
So it actually depends. For that case, I've sort of communicated with, she's actually a senior from BMS, so I won't mention her name. Well, she gave me a very good first impression because I've never talked to her. But she was she had a very good leadership skills. And I like the way she thinks. She's very immature and her thinking is very independent.
Mature.
Yeah. Yeah, despite from her background, I should say that. Yeah. So I actually asked her about what should I do because I found some
Difficulties
during last year when I was doing this degree. So I asked her if she advised me to continue or to quit the degree.
So like, how does that relate to first impressions?
Because she gave me actually a very nice first impression that she could help me solve the problem. That's why I approached her and only her and not no one else. Furthermore, I've never talked to her before.
Interesting. So, sort of drawing from that thread of thought, how important do you guys think it is to, design your first impression? Like the impression you give to other people. How important do you think it is to construct that?
I don't know, it's pretty important. Like, since I came here, right,
Important.
it is pretty important because since I came here, I've met a lot of new people. And maybe I didn't know, some of them looked kind of unapproachable at the beginning. So maybe I didn't talk to them as often as I would have. But, that's why it's kind of important, especially when you're going to a new place. Like, for example, everyone joined uni, like the new session started. I know it seems like a while back now. It's like 2 months, right? 2 or 3 months.
True.
But that's when I started seeing new people, right? So that's when the impression was important. But now you mostly have your own fixed groups or whatever. So not as important now, right?
So you would say that first impressions are only important at the beginning?
In some situations, like, for example, you go for an interview of some kind. So you need a good first impression, right? Even like what you guys were talking about, social media first impressions. Like nowadays, companies do like checks on your social media. So it is important that you need to portray yourself in a certain way as a friendly worker or like a person who is easy to work with. Otherwise, you will maybe not get hired if you put something wrong on your social media.
So it's like getting more and more important to like make an image of yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's important, but at the same time, I don't think it is possible and practical to be always cautious about it. Like, especially like you said, like in uni or like in like your daily life, you can't be like cautious like, oh, how am I gonna give the first impression about myself to someone? But like when you're going for interviews and all, like what Srinjoy said, then you can be like cautious about it. Yeah, you have to
present the best of yourself.
That's true, actually. So we talked about how important it is and all that. They say like don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's basically related to first impressions. Don't judge someone, just first impression. How do you think we can avoid judging someone too quickly, especially like when making first impressions?
I don't know. I don't think it's possible to avoid making a first impression about someone, right? See, because human nature dictates, like, if you see someone, you must form some kind of opinion. You can't be a neutral person. You can't be neutral about anything, to be honest. So, for example, if I look at you, if you dress smartly, I'll think something of you. But if you don't dress smartly, I'll think something else of you. I won't ever think, oh, that's his choice. Even though I might say that it's his choice. I won't think that.
I actually agree with Srinjoy because it really is human nature to, when you see something, you judge it first. Like you'll feel that, oh, this is nice and this is not nice. This is good looking and this is not good looking. So yeah, that's how we work.
Yeah, it is like natural to feel something or have a first impression about someone when you look at them. But maybe like one way we can like change is to maybe not approach them the way we have like judged them or something. Maybe we should like, if you want to talk to them, then like put aside the first impression and go and like break that barrier. And then you see how they are, and then you decide how you're gonna
and then you can balance your first impression and their
actual.
But I don't think it's possible to ever put aside your first impression. That's the problem.
Sometimes it's hard to.
Yeah, it's going to be impossible because you already definitely have some kind of preconception, like preconceived notion about the person or their nature. So you will somehow mold your conversation in such a way that it fits with him or her.
But like I would disagree with that because I have had personal experiences where I have formed certain like first impressions, but I basically realized it was wrong. The first impression was wrong, and then I had to reformulate my image of that person as to who they are and stuff. So but yeah, that's that. But okay, so we've talked a lot about first impressions. So here's the interesting twist: we've talked about first impressions in the context of individual people. what about if we talk first impressions and we start generalizing? Essentially, stereotypes. Because if you think about it, that's basically first impressions for groups of people.
So are you talking about?
It can be gender, it can be ethnic, just stereotypes.
So like
in general.
internalized like racism and stuff.
Yeah, in a way.
Basically, before you see the person, because I don't know, I wouldn't say this place is pretty diverse.
True.
Yeah, but in a way, we're all quite like similar. Yeah, like we're not I know that's a generalization in the first place. But like the places I've been before this were even more similar to each other. Like everyone was from the same ethnicity. So basically, I don't know, like people definitely do have preconceived notions about other races. I don't know, like if they might not say it out loud, but it always exists.
True.
And I don't know, it's not wrong to have a preconceived notion. I don't think it's wrong to have a thought about anything, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wrong to maybe act on that thought or do something specific based on that. So everyone has a preconceived notion about everything, right?
True.
So basically, you have a first impression about anything, about anyone, especially like, I know that this might seem wrong or something, but like even back home in India, there are situations where a certain religious group won't give rents out to a certain different religious group
Because of that impression.
Impression they have.
And that probably formed long ago.
I don't even think that's a first impression. Like, it's just, imagine looking at someone's like bio data that they've sent you and be like, oh, this is not right because he's from a different religion or different caste from me, right?
Yeah, true.
But you can have such a notion, but it's fine. Just don't act on it.
I think like gender stereotypes are really like you should not do it. I mean like because like you can see normally like girls they stereotype guys as like, oh, they don't care, they are really like, you know, like disorganized and this kind of things, but like unorganized and all. But like I don't think it applies to everyone because like each and every individual is different. And like what guys see, like even now I'm generalizing, like not all guys, some people would say that girls are complicated, this and that. So like I don't think that applies to everyone as well. Like each individual has their own character, has their own personality, and they should be respected for who they are, and they should never be generalized based on what they have experienced by like one person.
True.
Okay, I think that stereotyping is quite the human nature. It's like it follows the human nature because we always do that. So when it comes to stereotyping, I can relate it to a quote. I don't know what that calls. Like birds of a feather flock together. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it means that the same things they gather together. So I think that stereotyping is pretty common, but sometimes stereotyping may lead to discrimination, like what Srinjoy and Angshu said.
But like, because from what Srinjoy, he first said like first impressions, it's impossible to get rid of them. This is actually where stereotypes come in. Because a stereotype is usually formed because it's a group, right? It's like your first impression of some member or individual of that group. That's where it first forms. For example, I'll give like, is it good? I mean, you judge. But say this boy grows up in a family where his father is someone who goes out and works. And then his mom is someone, who just does the chores and stuff. And his father is always, in like the dominant role, makes the decisions and stuff. So his first impression of women, like his own mom, was like as someone who stays at home, does the chores. So that's his first impression of women. Because that's probably, assume, that's the only women he's seen. Then he goes out with that first impression. And then he sees other women, like in, say, dominant positions or like, as managers, like normal. Working and stuff, and then it clashes with his first impression. That preconceived notion he had. Wait, I thought women were supposed to be at home. Why, are they out here? And if you think about it, that's where a lot of the discrimination, a bit sometimes racism, this kind of thing is where it comes from. You have a preconceived notion, and then it starts clashing, and then you're like, wait, but could I be wrong? That's a lot of times that's what it is. Even like things about race, you meet like maybe one, I don't know, Chinese person and like, oh, he's so stingy. All Chinese people are stingy. That's basically what it is. Yeah. And like in that's essentially it. Different groups of people. Kind of how it happens. Okay, so let's sort of conclude this podcast. One final thing you guys want to say?
Have your thoughts. keep your thoughts, but don't act on your thoughts, I guess. That's what I want to say. Like,
Okay.
even though you might not like someone, take a little bit of your time. Maybe go up to them, talk to them. Maybe they're not in the best place right now. Maybe they need someone to talk to, but because of their impression that they're giving off or the vibe that they're giving off,
Vibes.
no one's approaching them, and that's making them feel worse. So take that time out. Maybe go up, talk to someone you didn't like when you first saw.
Chasha?
So first impressions last longest, but it is not the only impression that you do to make someone feel good about you.
Just don't let like a first impression stop you from talking to someone. Like what Sanjoy said, yeah, if you want to talk to that person, then just break that barrier and go talk to them. And don't generalize, don't stereotype. Like what you said just now, if your first impression about someone is based on the only person you've seen, then that's where exposure comes in. So you should take effort to like learn about more people, more things.
Yeah. So I think our speakers today summed it up pretty well. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Arvind, signing off, and that's the second opinion for you. Thank you.